everybody, Malcolm Tent here. If you can see this image and hear this voice, then you can be reasonably assured that if you're watching live on Facebook, that it is a Wednesday evening and it is 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Of course, if you're watching this and hearing this on YouTube or on any other time other than a Wednesday night at 7 p.m., you can be assured that it either is Wednesday at 7 p.m. or it's not Wednesday at 7 p.m. So I'm glad we got that clarified. But one thing does remain certain at all times: I am Malcolm Tent, and this is Tent Talks Tunes. Woo! So yeah, I want to say hello to everybody who's tuned in right now. I see we got a few viewers. I'm going to adjust my camera angle ever so slightly so you can see all of my commercial backdrops there. Hello, Mr. RoboPuff Law. Trash American style old timer. We say hello to you and thanks for tuning in. It's been a fairly slow mail week, but a good one. Anytime I get anything in the mail, I'm a happy guy. I'm sure you saw the address when we first began. I'll give it to you again. That is, of course, Malcolm Tent, P.O. Box 3626, Newtown, Connecticut, 06470. I love getting stuff in the mail, like this lovely postcard from my dear friends Janice and Tim and their various offspring and menagerie. Hello, pair. Sweden is in the house. Hello, my fellow Swedes. I'm sure I've got some Swede in me somewhere. My mom is the genealogist of the family. She's the one who surprisingly hasn't yet, but would be the type to get a DNA analysis to see exactly what kind of mutt the Tent family is. I kind of want to do it myself because I'm fascinated by that kind of stuff. I was talking to a friend of mine recently who had DNA analysis done. He found that he was something like 3% Chinese, and X% Native American, and I mean, just stuff like that is incredible. I really, really love that. So I don't even know why I started talking about that. Had something to do with Christmas cards? I don't know. Got something in the mail too from Billy himself, from the band Billy and the Buttons, who somehow I missed back in the day. They were around in the 80s, and Brute Force himself does the narration on this documentary, which is really cool. Haven't opened it yet, but I did play the CD. There's all kinds of stuff I can relate to on this one. Just Friends. I want to be interviewed. What can I tell ya? It's true. Stranger Than Usual. This is pretty cool stuff. It's very intelligent, very smart-ass, very well played. Right up my alley. So thank you, Billy, and the Buttons. I'll be checking out the rest of this ASAP. No worries. Don't worry, it's plastic. It doesn't break that easily. Hello, Neil, from the great city of Buffalo, New York. Some say Buffalo, some say Buffalo. We know where you are. Yes, veggie tacos for sure, man. Make them vegan, and I'll eat them. No worries. All right, so let's get right down to the brass gritty, shall we? Let's address the issue of nitty tacks. As you can probably see, I got Trash American Style on my mind. I started doing a story, a narrative, a history of Trash American Style last week. And as so often happens with these things, I thought I could wrap the whole thing up in an hour. That was obviously not true at all. 1 hour, and I only got to the point of us opening our doors. I mean, you figure we had 21 years of retail history and, I should say brick and mortar history, and then another 13 years of non-brick and mortar history to the store. So it's going to take a little bit more than an hour, and I'm not going to be able to wrap it up today. So I'm just going to keep on going until it's time for me to stop, until my voice gives out, or until your attention gives out, or until the cows come home, or the whales spout out there in Long Island Sound. I have no idea what's going to happen. I don't know. I just don't know. So why don't you and I embark on a voyage of musical and historical discovery, shall we? We shall. A toast to music and history. Nate says that he says buff a-hole. I'm not going to go there. I was in Buffalo fairly recently. I like Buffalo. The thing I like most about Buffalo is the cereal factory that they have on the waterfront. If you go by the cereal factory at the right time, it smells like Lucky Charms or maybe Cheerios or it's indescribably delicious. It's like when you used to go to Hoboken, New Jersey, and the big Maxwell House coffee factory was there. And you would go to a gig at Maxwell's and come out at 3 in the morning. They'd be grinding coffee in this giant factory, and it smelled like fresh ground coffee for blocks and blocks and blocks around. Well, Buffalo's got the cereal factory, and it smelled like Lucky Charms last time I was there. I wanted to be able to solidify the air and eat it. It was so good. Just so good. So, Buffalo, I salute you and your delicious cereal mill. So where we were last week? Well, where we were was Trash American Style that just opened its doors. And if you want to get the entire story, last week's episode of Tent Talks Tunes is archived on my Facebook page and on my YouTube channel. It's all there. So we've opened the doors. Trash American Style is officially in business. Now, the first day of business for Trash American Style was fantastic. We made what I thought was a lot of money because I had been going by the benchmark of what we would earn on a given day at my previous gig, which was Open Books and Records in North Miami Beach. And we would average a certain amount of money every day at Open. And that was enough to keep us going and, keep the business afloat. The first day we opened to Trash American Style, we made double that. And I thought, wow, this is pretty cool, man. Looks like the golden years are here. Ain't nothing to it. We just, in one day, have already made twice the average that I'm used to making as a clerk in a record store. This is great. I love it. I love it. So that was our first day, and it was a Saturday. Second day was a Sunday. That day we made about what Open Books and Records would make on a typical day, which was about half of what we made the day before. But I'm like, no problem. It's a Sunday. Sundays are typically slow anyway. We're still making good coin. The average is just fine. No worries. Everything's golden. Monday, we open up for business. Our third day. Monday, we open up. And at the end of the day, after being in the store for 9 hours or whatever, I added the thing up, added up the till. $40 we made. $40. And I'm like, $40. That's not a lot. That's really, that's quite a bit less than average. But whatever, it's a Monday. Mondays are slow. Our first 2 days were great. We're doing fine. We had a $40 day. No worries. Tuesday comes along and we made, I think, about $30-something. Not worried yet, but definitely thinking, well, maybe my ship hasn't come in. I can see it, but it hasn't docked. Speaking of sea, does the cat want to jump out the window? No. You people haven't yet met Harry the cat, but he, of course, as all cats do, for we who babysit cats, they dictate our lives. And it's cold outside in Connecticut, so his window is shut. So if y'all hear a bumping and a thumping coming over from that way, it's Harry trying to jump out of a closed window, which means I might have to let him out. This is live. This stuff happens live. Love it. So anyway, yeah, we're making like, okay, 40, now 30, and now 20, and then we finally make it to Saturday. We made some good money on Saturday, and then we went right back to 20s and 30s and 40s. I thought, well, okay. This is not going to be the cakewalk that I thought. Let's see what happens. So things like that went on for about a month or so. And we finally came to the realization that Trash American Style was going to start getting off the ground and getting on its feet maybe a little bit later than we thought. And man, I hated the idea But I've always been a pragmatic sort of dude. I realized, and we both did, Kathy and I, both realized that if we're going to keep this thing going, we got to get some jobs. We got to actually make some money and bring it in, because we're a month into it and we're starting to lose money now. We'd already spent everything we had just to get it open, and when you're not making your daily expenses, you're losing money. And that's just simple mathematics. You can't lose money for very long, because after a while you got nothing, and then you start to get into debt, and that is no good. No, 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 no bueno, no bueno. Can't do that. That would be a bad idea. I don't know if you can see my button here, but I hate bad ideas. Hate bad ideas. So as much as I loathed having to go out there and get a job again, getting a job in those circumstances was a good idea. And Kathy had the same good idea as well. So we each fell back on our respective skill sets. Kathy was very good at art, specifically technical drawing and drafting, and she could do some commercial art as well. So she started, putting the word out and looking around for some gigs, doing that. I had one skill set, which was taking inventories. If you recall from last week's episode of Tent Talks Tunes, in Florida, I was one of those guys who you'd see at the grocery store with a calculator on my hip, going down the shelves, counting cans of dog food and big bins full of nuts and bolts and screws and all that. I can still operate a calculator with my eyes closed. It's a true fact. One of my very favorite party tricks is to take a calculator much like this and sit down there with a big list of facts and figures and add them up accurately without looking at the calculator. If anybody wants to pay me money to come over to their house at a party and do that, like if your party is really slow and you need some entertainment, you just send some money to me, PayPal, Malcolm Tent, MT at malcolmtent.net, and I will come to your party with a calculator and I'll add some figures. Endlessly entertaining, I guarantee it. That's the best thing I got out of doing inventories in Florida and then in Connecticut. So, okay, I'm going to get a job doing inventories, which I hated, and which is sort of, on the face of it, contrary to the whole point of me being in Connecticut. I didn't come to Connecticut to work a job. I came to Connecticut to be a record mogul. But you got to do what you got to do. I mean, that's just it. There's no two ways about it. You got to make money. You got to make money. One thing I did know for a fact, for a damn fact, was that I was not going to get sucked into that job. Because if I might toot my own horn, I was pretty good at inventories. I was the top pharmacy guy at my office in Miami, and that was a real feather in the cap when I applied for the job in Danbury. So almost right off the bat, they wanted to make me like a team leader, and they kept bugging me to be a manager and all that. No, no, no. No! I did not want a promotion. I did not want to get the 30-cent an hour raise that came with the promotion. No, 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 because that meant an extra 75 hours a week with a calculator strapped to my hip. Nope, didn't want that. Did not want to be an office manager, because that meant 192 hours added to the schedule, sitting there in an office filing paperwork and feeling my hemorrhoids grow to the size of baseballs through absolute frustration and anger and hatred, and just sitting at a desk 192 hours a week. Weren't going to do that. Not part of the plan, man. The plan was to work just as many hours as needed to pay the rent at Trash American Style, which was, if I remember correctly, $425 a month for our 293 square foot slice of paradise that we had by the Four Corners in Brookfield. That I knew. I wasn't going to work 1 minute more than what was necessary to pay the rent. So I sat down and figured it out, on the aforementioned calculator, which I was very good at. I crunched the numbers and figured out what kind of money we needed to bring in. Because I was making at that time $7 an hour, which in 1986 was amazing money. I was making minimum wage in Florida, which was $3.35 an hour. Come to Connecticut, make $7 an hour, not bad. So I had to work, 60 hours a month to pay the rent at Trash American Style. And the way it worked was we'd go into the office every week on, like a Monday or whatever, and the available inventory gigs coming up in the week were posted, and we'd sign on for each individual job that we wanted to do. So I would sign up every week for just enough to pay the money. And it was also, well, Harry's trying to jump out the window. I warned you guys about this, so here's the wonders of live Facebook streaming. I actually have to stand up for a second, walk over a few feet, and let Harry jump out the window. Because I don't know if you heard the thump, but he just tried to jump through the closed window. It's not good. So hang on. This is for the love of the cat, okay? All right, Harry boy. Come on out. There you go, son. That window is open. The things we do for love of cats. Oh, Harry. Nobody's ever seen you, but you're quite the character. Anyway. Yes, Nate knows all the calculator tricks, I see. Oh, my God. Horrific. So, yeah. The inventory business was seasonal anyway, so I would get just enough hours, work them, pay the rent, and then tell them to buzz off. And Kathy also picked up a couple of jobs doing the drafting and technical drawing, but she hated it so much, and she was so completely gung-ho about Trash American Style that she did, I think, maybe 2 jobs like that and said no more. She just totally said, I'm not working. I'm just not. You go work. I'm going to stay at Trash American Style and keep the doors open. I said, great, whatever. Whatever it takes. And that was actually very, very good because the store was always open and I would be out there bringing in the extra money, and Kathy would keep the lights burning and the doors open and, be the face of Trash American Style. So we co-owned the place. There was always an owner on site, and it worked out very well. And Kathy also taught me a very valuable lesson. I kind of knew it already from my days at Open Books and Records. My mentor, Leslie Wimmer, sort of, stuck it in me with her thumb. But with Kathy, it was a whole different thing. There's no such thing as downtime. There's no such thing as idle time. So she'd be at the store, and there might be, hours at a stretch when nothing was happening. Like nobody was coming in, the phone wasn't ringing, nothing. So she would sit there and she would weave the Guatemalan style bracelets out of a yarn or lanyard or whatever. She'd sit there, she'd weave a bracelet, finish it up, toss it in a basket on the front counter. It said Guatemalan bracelets, $1.50 each. And she'd just weave those things all day long and throw them in the basket. Or she'd weave necklaces or whatever. She was always doing something. And so when I was at the store, and it was kind of the same deal, it was just downtime, I'd do the same thing. She taught me how to weave Guatemalan bracelets. So I'd sit there, or actually stand there. I remember so clearly we had one rack of like winter overcoats. I would take the yarn, put a safety pin through the end of it, safety pin it to one of those coats, weave it, tie it off, take it off the coat, throw it in the basket. $1.50 each. And people would buy those things for $1.50 each when they came in. Making money. That's what you got to do. I remember one day I found a, very much like this, a sheet of blank sticker paper, maybe a couple of them in the desk. I don't even know where it came from. But we had a rubber stamp that had Gumby and Pokey on it. And we also had a stamp pad. So I just took the sticker paper and stamped it with Gumby and Pokey. Got a dozen to a sheet. Cut them up. Put them on the counter. Stickers, 25 cents each. And people bought them for $0.25 each. It was just a found sheet of sticker paper and a rubber stamp. But that's the kind of stuff you had to do. You had to keep it going. You had to constantly juice and goose the inventory and stay busy. and make it fresh. There always had to be something new for somebody when they walked in. That's the way I always looked at it anyway. So we were always doing something. We never just sat around doing nothing. There was always something going on to build the store, to build the inventory, decorating, remodeling, whatever. Always doing something. And so when I'd be out doing inventories for however many hours a day it was, I'd come back to the store and do whatever work had to be done at the store. And yeah, it was kind of grueling. It was a lot of work and a lot of hours, but we were building something, you know. We were doing what we wanted to do, which was to ultimately not have to work a job and to be at the store full time. And needless to say, it did eventually pay off. I think I worked that job for a year-ish, until finally I was sitting there crunching the numbers, and I realized that we were, like, by me working the job, I was actually bringing in more than was necessary to pay the rent and the basic bills. So I said, that's it. I'm done. I ain't going back. No more job. And that was basically it, except for one day, a few years later, when I went back to work a job. Except for one day, I never punched a clock again. And that was 33-ish years ago. So let's drink another toast to 33 years of not punching a clock. Yay! Not a bad life. And I think everybody out there, whoever came to the store or bought something off of me from Discogs or eBay or set foot in Trash American Style, thank you. I drink to you, because you made it possible. And you just got to watch me drip fresh Danbury tap water all over myself. So y'all are going to be able to stare at that for the entire duration of this episode of Tent Talks Tunes. So, times were slow. I'll just sit like this. Times were slow that first year or so, but things were always happening. You know, it's almost every single day something happened to move our train a little bit further down the track. Somebody would walk in the door, something. And you never knew what. And that was the beauty of having the record store, man. Especially our kind of place. That front door that we had, I always called it the Normality Filter, because it filtered out most normality. Almost anybody and everybody who walked in that front door was not normal. They came to us because they had a certain idea, a certain viewpoint, a certain ethic, certain taste, a certain culture. The normal people mostly never made it past that front door. So that having that there Normality Filter was fantastic. It almost guaranteed that whoever came through the door was going to have something interesting to say or something interesting to do, or was interested in what we were doing and would help us stay in business. So right off the bat, some very interesting people started coming through our door. And I want to tell you about some of them. And this is not chronological in the slightest bit. This is just as I remember them. I've got some show and tell stuff here. Before we even moved to Connecticut, Kathy was always telling me about how cool the Connecticut punk and hardcore scene was. She was always telling me about bands like Vatican Commandos and 76% Uncertain and CIA and the Almighty Seizure and all these great Connecticut punk and hardcore bands. And one day, while in Florida, we were looking at an issue of Maximum Rock and Roll, the greatest punk rock magazine that ever existed, and she saw an ad for a demo cassette by this band called Violent Children. And she's like, whoa, Violent Children, they're great. I know those kids. They used to work at the Hilton Hotel by Exit 2, where I used to work. I worked at the front desk, and they all worked in the kitchen and in the back. Oh, they were funny. This one kid named Cappo, and this other kid named Warren Kennedy and Chris Getz and Dave Ranelli. Oh, they were funny. I love their band. So she sent the $3 to the address in Danbury, Connecticut, and got herself in the mail. Slick, huh? It's a very slick tape. So slick I can't keep a grip on it. She got herself a Violent Children cassette. Very much like this one. And we played that tape to death, man. It was a style of hardcore I love. It was fast and furious, a little bit funny. I don't think there's one single song on here that's longer than 1 minute and 15 seconds. Just boom, in and out. Shred and tar, songs about skating, straight edge songs. Loved it. So we played that tape almost to death. And so when we got to Connecticut, I got to work. One of the things I would do in my downtime was go through the latest issue of Maximum Rock and Roll or Flipside or whatever punk rock zine there was. I would comb every issue looking for bands who had something that I wanted to bring into the store. I'd look at all the ads, I'd look at all the reviews, and anything that looked like I could sell it or that I wanted to hear personally, I'd write to the band and say, hello, I have a record store in Connecticut. I'd like to carry your cassette, your record, your zine, whatever. And quite often bands would write back and say, sure, we would love to have you sell our stuff. So I wrote to the address on the Violent Children ad in Maximum Rock and Roll. And within a short period of time, this guy walked in through the Normality Filter. He passed the first test right there. He made it through. And said, hi, my name is Jordan Cooper. You wrote to me about the Violent Children cassette. I have 3 of them here if you'd like to buy them. And I said, yeah, I'd love to. We don't buy stuff outright. I'll sell them on consignment if you want. And he said, oh, okay. I think they were like $1.75 each. So he left the 3 Violent Children cassettes. I put price tags on them, $3 each. And they sold very quickly. So I'd gotten Jordan's phone number. I called him back and said, Jordan Cooper, I need some more of those Violent Children tapes. He said, oh, okay, I'll bring some more by. And he brought by 3 more. Sold them almost immediately. Thought, this is pretty cool, man. As Scott just mentioned, RadCon. This was RadCon in effect. So I called him again and said, Jordan, we just sold out the second batch of Violent Children cassettes. Can you bring me more? He said, well, I'm not doing those cassettes anymore. My business partner and I, this guy Ray, we're starting a record label. And we actually just got the records back from the pressing plant. And maybe you'd like to sell some of those. I said, yeah, I'll check it out. What you got? And he showed me the very first pressing of the very first record on this guy's label, which was called Revelation Records. Rev number 1, Warzone, Lower East Side Crew. I thought, all right, looks cool. I'll take a few of those. Let me try 3 of those. Same deal? Sure, same deal. I think they might have been $2 each. On consignment. I think I brought in 5 copies because I was feeling adventurous. Boom! They sold out very quickly. And so I called Jordan again, and from about that point on, I just started buying the stuff from him outright because it seemed like he was just going to sell no matter what. And that was the beginning of my very long, very interesting, and very fruitful relationship with Revelation Records. And I will probably have to do an entire episode of Tent Talks Tunes on Revelation Records alone. That was a phenomenon. Whether it was in Buffalo or Atlanta or Lantana or the planet Mars, for God's sake, Revelation Records was the shite for quite a while. But that's how it began. I just wrote to the dude for some cassettes. And it turned into a damned avalanche after that. That was pretty cool. Now, right around the same time, excuse me while I hydrate, some wiseacre after this was vodka. No, it's water. If y'all know me, I'm true till death. Straight edge. I'm not going to tell you what to drink, but I only drink the finest tap water. Thank you very much. And did not spill it on myself this time. That's from last time, I swear. Anyway, around this time, the word had gotten out amongst certain people who were record collectors, who were punk rock record collectors, that we had some really cool stuff in our bins. Some very, very interesting punk and hardcore records, because that's kind of what I collected. So I just took all of my records and put them in the bin to open Trash American style. At the time, I was not cognizant, I was not aware, I didn't even have I had no concept of the fact that a punk record, or a hardcore record especially, could be rare or collectible. I had no idea. To me, a rare, the only records that were rare or collectible were like, Beatles records, Rolling Stones records, old doo-wop records, stuff like that. You got to remember, this is 1986, and punk and especially hardcore are still, fairly new on the map. And living in Florida, I was just not connected into anything other than our local scene. So the idea of a supposedly rare or collectible hardcore record was kind of alien. It was alien to me. I didn't get it. So I put stuff out in the bins, like, the First Cause for Alarm record for $1.50, the DRI 22-song EP, not LP, the 22-song EP for $3. I think the most expensive collectible record we had was the 7 Seconds Skins, Brains, and Guts record, which Kathy insisted that we sell for $6.50. Because she said 7 Seconds are hot. That record is very highly sought after. It's out of print. Kids want it. Trust me, somebody will pay $6.50 for it. Joseph Charles mentions the Queen City Stomp. Yes, I had copies of the very first Anti-Scene record, the Anti-Scene Drastic EP that I brought up with me from Florida, that I was selling for $2 each. And in fact, I got a couple of records here that I put in the bins when I opened the store that didn't sell, or did sell that I eventually got back. And some of these even have the original price tags on them. This is cool. One of the records from my own personal collection that I sold, or tried to sell when we opened up Trash American Style, was this really awesome San Francisco heavy-duty synth band called Minimal Man. I actually bought this record new at full price from Open Books and Records when I worked at that place in Florida. Great record. Love that record, but we had to sell stuff, so I put it in the bin. And here's the original price tag, the original Trash American Style price tag in Kathy's handwriting for $5.50. It fell off the record because nobody bought it. And after a while, if it's sitting there in the bin, I said, well, if no one's going to buy it, I'm taking it back home. So I did. And here it is. From Florida to the original Trash American Style, back into my personal collection. Thank you very much. Kind of the same deal with this. Very unusual white and blue cover pressing of Joy Division Still. Kind of the same deal. I bought it in Florida, brought it to Connecticut, had to sell something, so I put a $30 price tag. That is the original price tag from the original Trash American Style, which I hope my crappy camera can pick up, with my own original price code on it. $30 I wanted for this thing, which was a princely sum of money at the time. $30 for this white cover still. And nobody bought it. And after a little while, I said, okay, it's not selling. I'm taking it back. So I did. And I still got it to this day. This one was kind of funny. My copy of Meet the Residents. From Florida. Brought it to Trash American Style. This record was in the bin the very first day we opened. Somebody came in and bought it very early onward, and a whole bunch of years passed, and then at some point I got the call that this guy was selling his record collection. So I went to go visit him, bought his record collection, and got it back. I got it back as a trade. The dude bought it and sold it back to me. And it still had on the cover the original Trash American Style price tags from the very first day that we opened. When I bought it back, I said, I'm keeping it. It's mine. Y'all can't have it. Mine. Esta mío. Mío! So anyway, that's just a little itty-bitty, tiny little sampling of the kind of stuff we had for sale when we first opened up Trash American Style. So between that and the fabulous rarities in the hardcore arena that I was selling for dirt cheap, word got out. And so this guy one day just casually strolls in and says, "Oh hey, do you have any cause for alarm 7-inch EPs?" And I said, no, I had one, but I sold it. He said, "Oh, okay. You don't happen to have any more Dirty Rotten Imbeciles 22-song EPs, do you?" And I was like, wait a minute. I'm dealing with a real smart guy here. "No, I don't have that. What else are you looking for?" 7 seconds, Skins, Brains, and Guts. I said, okay. "No, I don't have any more of that stuff. It all sold. That was all for my personal collection. Sorry, I ain't got no more." And he was totally bummed, but we got to talking. And turns out this guy, who was a hardcore record collector, was named Ray Cappo. "Oh, Ray Cappo, I've heard of you. You used to be in Violent Children." Yeah, that was me. Yeah, I met Jordan, blah, blah, blah. So, we started chatting and everything. And he eventually came back a little bit later with copies of his new band's 7-inch EP, which was called Can't Close My Eyes, by a band called Youth of Today. Woo! And actually, that record was already into its second pressing by the time I met Ray. But the first few copies I had of that, he brought personally. And I bought off of him for, a couple bucks each, wholesale, whatever it was. And it was kind of the same deal. They just sold. They sold very quickly. And then, of course, soon afterwards, they started doing stuff for, Revelation and whatever labels they ended up on, Wishing Well, blah, 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 blah. And I couldn't buy Youth of Today records directly from Ray anymore. But the first couple times, I did. So those people were starting to walk in the door, man. Excuse me. The requisite clearing of the throat, which happens almost every episode of Tent Talks Tunes. Excuse me. You gotta bear with me, please. Please forgive me. Man, don't do that at home. If you're gonna do it at home and not in front of an audience, for gosh sakes. Alright, another day at the store. We're sitting there minding our own business, and sure enough, the Normality Filter opened, and somebody stepped in. A very tall, tousle-headed, blonde fella. I swear it looked like he just came off the farm in Litchfield County somewhere. Totally unassuming, totally quiet. Looked kind of bewildered, sort of. He's just like looking around. Like, I don't know, what is this? What is this? And I said, hey. He said, hey. And he started looking around and going through the bins. And after a while, he picked out a record and brought it to the counter. It was a Thelonious Monk record. I thought, oh, Monk, that's pretty cool. So we started talking a little bit about jazz and, our favorite jazz artists and everything. And it was pretty mellow. And, he paid the $4.50 for the record. And, we were still hanging out a little bit. And he was, you know, sort of walking toward the door, and I was out on the sales floor, and excuse me, I'm sorry, guys. I don't know why I'm so dry tonight. It's all I'm not used to talking this much. I think that's really it, especially for the last 9 months. I am not used to talking this much at one time. So thanks for helping me break in my larynx again. Woo! It's been it hasn't been elasticized in a while. It's petrified, I'm telling you. So yeah, this weird dude and I are sort of migrating toward the front door naturally, and at some point he looked up at our ceiling, and if anybody remembers Trash American Style, we definitely had a dense pack philosophy. I hated to see even 1 square inch of empty space anywhere. I could survey the sales floor and the walls and the ceiling of Trash American Style, which would be just, you know, as you guys know, if you were ever there, just covered in stuff hanging from the ceiling like stalagmites, everywhere. All I would ever see is up. There's 3 square inches of blank wall there. We got to put something there immediately. I would just go right to that. So at the original Brookfield location, especially because it was so small, it was easy to just paper the joint with posters and flyers and signs and knickknacks and gimcracks and gewgaws and flotsam and jetsam. So we had a bunch of posters on the ceiling, and he points up at one and says, "Hey, I'm in that band." And I thought, oh, he's in some local hardcore band? Which one? He said, that one right there, Sonic Youth. I said, oh, you're the guitar player. I saw you guys, you played Irving Plaza a little while ago. Yeah, I saw Sonic Youth. You're in that band? Yeah, I'm Sonic Youth. Oh, cool, great. Nice. You know, I had actually heard of Sonic Youth. I had their promo poster up on my ceiling. So that's how I got to meet the Sonic Youths, and by extension, the Moore family, because they all lived in that area. The Moores were from a couple towns over from Brookfield. So Thurston and his brother Gene and his nephews Danny and George, and his mom came in a couple of times, and various other relatives, and very, very cool people. The first couple times Sonic Youth were on tour, they would stop by. And my favorite memory of all on that one was when they were on tour for the Sister album, which was in the summer of '87. And I think they might have even been on their way to the Anthrax. No, I'm sorry, they were probably on their way to the Night Shift Cafe in Naugatuck, because they played the Anthrax. I'm not even going to try to remember. I know they played the Anthrax on the it was the Sister tour. Damn, I can't remember this stuff at all anymore. They played the Anthrax on the Sister tour, and they played the Night Shift Cafe after the Sister tour, both in 1987. Got it straight. So there you go. Summer of '87, Sister tour, Sonic Youth are on their way to the Anthrax, so they stop by, and they're doing some shopping, and they don't have any money. All they have is this big box of promo albums for Sister, as we've talked about many times on Tent Talks Tunes. They were promos, so they had the corners cut off, and they wanted to trade for records. They're like, hey, how many Sister records do you want for this Grateful Dead album? Hey, how many Sister records do you want for this t-shirt? And how many Sister records do you want for this whatever? I was like, well, okay, I'll trade you 3 Sister records for the Grateful Dead record. I'll trade you 4 Sister records for the cassette. It just went on like that. And of course, I had them all sign one before they left. And that was the reality of barter, the barter system at Trash American Style, very early on. Because I always said that stuff is more fun than money. I still think stuff is more fun than money. That's probably why I'm not sitting on a mountain of 24 karat gold ingots right now. But I got some cool stuff. Like this vintage Sonic Youth boot 7-inch that actually has an old price tag from Rhymes Records in New Haven. Rhymes Records was a fine record store in New Haven. And that's their price tag. And I should have gotten them to sign this one. Wasn't thinking about it. But yeah, those people walked in the door. That was pretty cool, man. Another individual who walked in the door. Oh, and by the way, I see that we have Melinda Bellis is tuned in now live on the Facebook. She was the first employee that Trash American Style ever had. I knew her back then as Mindy. She was a lot younger back then. So was I. But yes, if any of you are watching right now and you're in the comments section and you see Melinda Bellis, raise one to her and give her a salutatory sip of whatever it is you're drinking, because she was the first worker we ever had. Salute to the artist formerly known as Mindy Bellis. Hey Mindy, glad to see you there. Whew. I still got a few minutes left in me. Another guy who walked in the front door. This is really something I think I have, if you guys will bear with me. I have the entire file of my label, TPOS, over here to my right, just off of camera view. So I'm going to try to fish something out of here that's pretty funny. This is a wild story. I've had some wild experiences and some wild stories in my day, but this is a real wild one. Let's see if I've got the AV for this one here. No, I don't. It's on file somewhere else because I'm working on a project with this guy. But anyway, we had a friend, or I should say I had a friend in Florida who was a total vagabond wanderer. He would hop trains. He was a poet full-time. He had a really bad dope habit, alcoholic. You know, sort of like a Bukowski type of dude, but really always living right on the edge, like really seriously living on the edge of danger, if not death. This guy was not a poser. He was absolutely legit. You would never catch me living the lifestyle he led because it, you know, didn't last long, you know. He died at a very early age, but when he was alive, he's one of those guys that burned hot. He was like a magnesium flare. And I met him at a poetry reading in North Miami Beach in 1984, and stayed in, you know, got to know him, stayed in touch with him. And shortly after Kathy and I moved to Connecticut, I got a postcard in the mail from him saying, "Is this true? Did you guys really move to Connecticut? My parents live in Connecticut. I'll be up for a visit." I was like, cool. We're going to get a visit pretty soon from none other than Brian Douglas Clemens. Wow, neat. The wild man himself is going to be based at his parents' house in Stratford for a little while. Nice. So he came up, and we got, you know, said, "Hi, good to see you again." You know, got reacquainted and everything, and it was cool. And let's see, how should I... This story is like so intertwined and multifaceted. I'll take a step back. Okay, Brian Douglas Clemens, the wild, alcoholic, dope-shooting, train-hopping, danger-defying poet is in Connecticut. Okay? And he was a brilliant poet, too. I'm going to tell you guys right off, his stuff was good. His stuff was really good. Brian Douglas Clemens is in Connecticut. The side track, the sidelight to that story is a kid who walked in the store one day and said, "Hey, you got anything by G.G. Allin?" And I'd heard of G.G. Allin, and in fact I did have something by G.G. Allin. G.G. Allin would advertise in Maximum Rock and Roll almost every issue. He was always selling cassettes, sometimes records. And so I thought, oh, yeah, G.G. Allin is like some kind of performance artist or something. And I actually had one of his cassettes, because when I was at Open Books and Records in South Florida, there was a radio DJ on WLRN. His name was Bob Slade. And Bob Slade would do what all good DJs do. He would bring in his unwanted promos and stuff that he had already used up on the air and sell them at the record store. So I was at the record store one day and I was taking the trade-ins, and there was this cassette, and I, at that time, hadn't heard of Gigi, or, you know, maybe I had and I just wasn't interested, and I said, "I don't want that." And he said, well, take it anyway. I don't want it. Just take it. And I was like, all right, I'll take it. just took it, put it in my to-go home pile, and just kind of forgot about it. He just gave me this G.G. Allen cassette. And so this kid walked in and wanted to know who G.G. Allen was. He said, if I had anything for G.G. Allen, I said, yeah, I got this one cassette. The Cedar Street Sluts cassette, $3. He said, okay, I'll take it. So he bought it, came back a little while later and said, more, I want more. I want more. And I said, I can do that. So I got the latest issue of Maximum Rock and Roll, leafed through it, and sure enough, there was an ad by this guy, G.G. Allen. So I wrote to him, said, hi, I've got a record store, would like to sell your stuff. And G.G. sent back this catalog of all the cassettes that he had. No records, just all cassettes, all homemade cassettes. And his stuff was a little bit expensive. He wanted like $3 and $4 each for his cassettes, when at the time, the wholesale on your average demo cassette or something was like $2. And he wanted like double that. So I wrote back to him and said, well, I don't know, it's a little bit expensive. Can you sell on consignment? The usual routine. He wrote back and said, no consignment, you got to pay me up front. And I thought, well, that's the end of that. I'm not going to, spend $4 each on these cassettes. I don't even know what, I don't even know who this guy is. I just know this one kid wants them. So I passed on it. But then maybe a week or two later, this big box arrives from GG, and it's all cassettes. I'm like, oh, okay. He sent me like 20 cassettes. And there's a note inside in there that said, don't fucking rip me off. I was like, fine. Well, I'm not going to rip you off. Put the cassettes out. Called the kid who asked for them originally. He came down, bought a bunch of them, and what do you know? A bunch of other people started buying it, even though they were way more expensive than the other cassettes I had. Like, they sold pretty quickly. So I called him back and said, well, GG, I owe you some money, and sent him a check, and he sent more cassettes, and that was the beginning of my very interesting relationship with Mr. G.G. Allen. And it's one of those fortuitous things. The kid who came in and originally asked for G.G. lost interest a short time later and sold me his entire G.G. Allen collection, including this very original first pressing of G.G.'s first album, Always Was, Is, and Always Shall Be. Actually, I should be more accurate. This is not the actual copy. I still have the actual copy I got from that kid, but it's not autographed. This one, as you can see, is autographed twice. How's that for dedication? He autographed the record twice, over 2 different spans of time, you can see. Yeah, this one's mine. I'm not parting with this. Anyway, to get back to the Brian Douglas Clemens story, Brian Douglas Clemens had this idea. He called me one day and said, hey man, I got this idea. I've got a poem. It's called the $20 Poem. And I've got this idea for a video I want to shoot. And long story short, I'm not going to get into graphic detail. It basically involved Brian Douglas Clemens being tied up and mercilessly abused by somebody while that person read Brian's poem. And I said, Brian Douglas Clemens, I think I know just the guy for you. So I sent Brian a G.G. Allen cassette. Brian called me back a little while later and said, yeah, this is my guy. So we got it together, and thus was born one of those things that once you've seen it, you're never going to unsee it. The Brian Douglas Clemens Rest in Peace video. Not recommended for the weak of heart or the weak of stomach. Oh my God. But we did it. And that's all because one kid walked in the door asking for G.G. Allen stuff, and my pal Brian Douglas Clemens just happened to be in Connecticut at the time. Really, really amazing how this stuff works. And, yeah. Available on Discogs. I don't know about eBay, but Discogs for sure. Look it up. I guarantee you're not going to believe it. Guarantee it. So that's just kind of how, that just illustrates how the store developed over time. It was all because of the input of the people who walked through our normality filter. They came in, they asked questions, they said things, they wanted to know, they wanted to impart, and the entire function of me and Kathy behind the counter was to assimilate and use and direct and hook the people up with what they wanted. It was never my job, and to this day still is not my job, to sell something to you. My job is to connect you with what you want. That's it. Nothing more than that. I'm a conduit. I'm a vector. And I like that because I learn so much from being a vector, and I absorb so much, and I gain so much by simply listening to what people have to say and acting on it and seeing how that knowledge and that information interacts with other people and makes things happen. It's that whole web of interconnections. It's fascinating to this very day, and it always will be, to see how people connect with each other and things happen. I think about all the bands that formed at Trash American Style because people met each other there. I know people who got married. Marriages happened because they met at Trash American Style. Children were born because of that. That's pretty goddamn cool. That really is. That is really, really cool. And I have always been honored and humbled by that, and completely blown away by that. That this little thing that Kathy and I started because we didn't want to work a job anymore just mushroomed, blossomed, exploded, whatever you want to call it, into this institution, this entity, Trash American Style. And here I am, in the year 2020, 34 years later, with an audience of people who actually want to hear about it. That's great. I love it. I appreciate that immensely. More than you can probably ever know. So I think that's a pretty good point to break the story. I've been here for almost an hour. Still got my voice. Don't want to lose it. So I'm going to get out of here. As always, I'm on the Facebook. I'm on the Instagram. Discogs, eBay. Look up TPOS. Look up Trash American Style. Go to our website, trashamericanstyle.us. Trash American Style Facebook page. MalcolmTent.net. MalcolmTent.net website. There, I said it. Look up my band. They hate us. We got a new album out called Get Back in the House. It totally rocks. This album kicks ass. If it didn't kick ass, I wouldn't be on it. You know what I mean, Jelly Bean? Look it up. Look up all my bands. Ultra Bunny. Look them up. Look them up. Look them all up. We rule. We rock. Trash American Style is still alive. And as long as I draw a breath, it will stay alive. And no doubt there will be more Tent Talks tunes devoted to Tales of Trash. Maybe next week. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. So anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. I hope to be back here live in 167 hours. So until we meet again, this is Malcolm Tent saying so long from the Nutmeg State.